Hi everyone. This month in our video podcast, as I'm sure you can all see, I'm with a true celebrity star, Mr. Dean Macey. Dean, how are you doing?
I am very well, my friend. I'm going on holiday at 2:00 tomorrow morning, so tonight technically. I'm really excited, buddy.
And that's a fishing trip, I presume, is it?
It is, yeah. It's a fishing trip. It was a last-minute.com trip to. I went out to Fuerteventura in January with a friend of mine, and I sort of lost the one that I was after, the one that got away. So this is hopefully I'm going to redeem myself. But I'm taking a couple of friends out there because I just loved it, like bit of rock climbing, little bit of lure fishing and stuff like that, and hopefully a bust up from a 20-pound bluefish. I don't know. Maybe my name's on it, maybe it's not, but you ain't going to catch them sitting indoors.
That's very true. We'll come back to that because obviously, well, I think to start with, we'll talk about a bit about your athletics career. I mean, if I'm correct, and from research that I've done, could you have been a professional footballer? Were you on the books? Was it Arsenal?
Look, everyone's had trials, ain't they? And mine was probably a bit more legit than the guy down the pub that had trials at wherever club. But yes, I had a bit of talent. There were professional teams interested, Arsenal being one of them. Could I have been a professional footballer? Yeah, I suppose at that young, 13, 14 years of age, there was the ability and the chance there, but I don't know. I think so. The answer would be yes, but I think to become professional in anything in sport, your heart's got to be in it. And
right.
And as much as I loved my football when I was a kid, what I had in track and field, I didn't have in football. Does that make sense?
Like absolutely.
What I put into track and field, I never. And don't get me wrong. I mean, it was later on in life, so maybe I matured into that type of person. But what I put into track and field, I never put into football, and possibly that's because track and field being a very individual sport. If I pardon the pun or pardon the language, then it's all on me. Whereas you can mess up a few times in football and you've got 10 people behind you sort of picking up the slack, which is kind of why I preferred track and field over and above football anyway.
Right.
I remember the team I played for, Mornington Boys, very good, very competitive team. We had 2 cup finals one year, and 1 cup final we lost, but I played amazing, and we lost on penalties, to be fair. So it was a very competitive match. But I saved a couple of their shots off the line. I hit the post a few times. Like I was all over the pitch, and I basically I felt like I carried the team, got man of the match. And even though we lost that cup final, I was really happy with myself, which is weird because I just lost the cup final. And then the other one we won, and I'll be honest, I was labouring. I got carried. And even though we won that, everyone was sitting there popping it weren't champagne, it was fizzy apple juice, wasn't it? Do you know what I mean? But we all thought it was champagne, so we were the kids. And I didn't feel particularly great about winning a cup final when I didn't pull my weight. So maybe that's one of the reasons why I really gelled with track and field quite quickly. Because I like the fact that regardless of how many physios, doctors, coaches, parents, like siblings, wife, friends, all sort of, they help you along the way, along the season, when the gun goes, that it's me and everyone else, or me versus everyone else, you know? So there's no blame anywhere else. It's just, I quite like the fact that I took all the glory or I got my arse whipped on my own.
Which actually transfers across to the fishing world quite nicely, doesn't it? I mean, you know, if it's an individual thing, you may have a mate net for you or whatever, but the whole point of of the fishing is it's you against the fish basically. So I suppose from the athletics perspective, you're the only one to take the blame, aren't you?
Yeah, and often in many of the athletic events that I used to do. Across the decathlon, there was only one person in my lane. There was only one person on my run-up. There was only one person in the circle when I was there. And so it's very much a case of me performing as well as I possibly could. It's not like boxing when there's someone implementing their game plan on you. You can't get past their jab. They're better at their game plan than you. My game plan was, right, when they call my name, I walk into that circle and I smash that shot as far as I possibly can. And hopefully it's better than everybody else's.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, when they call me to the blocks and the gun goes, I've got 7 other people in that 100-meter race. I need to implement my game plan, but none of their, as long as you're disciplined in the fact that you have that tunnel vision, then none of them can actually physically implement their game plan on you. You got to block that out and implement your own one. So I suppose that was slightly different to obviously football, because if you've got someone bullying you around and keeping you off the ball, then you know they can influence you. But I did love that sort of individual, I got really nervous, don't get me wrong, but I always say to people, you only get nervous about things you care about. But when they called you to your marks, there was a feeling in my belly that I've never felt. I never felt before, and I've never felt it since. It's like an excitement, anxious, nervous, confident feeling. It's a mixture of all of them, you know. And it's the day you retire and you realise you're never going to get that again is a bit of a struggle, to be honest.
Yeah, I mean, you had quite an illustrious career. I mean, the decathlon. I mean, you couldn't have picked a more varied. I mean, I think there's every track and field event in it, isn't there?
Pretty much, yeah. I mean, you can keep the steeplechase and you can keep the marathon, but other than that, yeah, we've pretty much got it all.
I mean, that's the dedication to be good at, you know, not just one thing, but again, that because in your terms of your angling, I mean, you're not a full-on carp angler, are you? I mean, you are a multi-species specimen angler.
Yeah, some people say specie angler, some people say all-rounder. I'm just a fisherman. I just love fishing. I'm not a carp angler. I'm not a bream angler. I'm not a tench angler. I'm not a barbel angler. I'm just an angler. And I love the fact that I never got bored in track and field because there was always something else I had to be practicing. And I never get bored in fishing because there's always something else and I do get bored in fishing. You know, I get bored fishing the same venue. I get bored fishing for the same. I never get bored fishing for Chub, but I often get bored fishing for the same species. You know, but I've got multiple venues, multiple species that always keeps me interested. From mullet fishing or mullet observing, because I don't catch many, but I'm always out there trying to have a go. But mullet fishing in the summer and bass fishing in the summer, which is kind of new to me over the last few years. So that sort of kept me interested in the time. I've always struggled to fish in the middle of the summer because I've never wanted to barbel fish at the first couple of months of the season. Never really felt like it was not so much right, but just I'd rather fish from another time of the year. Carp fishing, I couldn't think of anything worse than being cooped up in a bivvy when it's north of 30 degrees. And so, like, you know, there's always something else you can do in those conditions that is better than that until the conditions suit what you want to do. So, like now, it's absolutely perfect for carp, barbel, chub, almost anything you want to go fish for, but really bad for the bass and really bad for the mullet. So I sort of see the seasons, or I sort of see fishing as a bit of a rainbow. There are multiple colours in the rainbow, and I want to experience them all. I don't just want to get stuck on one.
Right. So, I mean, even I've seen from your social media, even your sea fishing, you don't do it easy, do you? I mean, you go out is it a kayak kind of thing that you? I mean, again, that's a lot of physical exertion. So I'm presuming that the physical fitness side of things probably to a slightly lesser degree to what when you were at your prime. But I presume are you still involved in the athletics as well as?
Yeah. So through the summer holidays, I do, or through the half-term holidays and summer holidays, I run camps for kids. And then up until from probably the end of Feb, beginning of March, all the way through till, all the way through till the summer holidays, I do quite a lot of CPD and master classes. So I basically teach teachers how to coach track and field because it's quite a diverse sport. You know, if you can kick a ball, you can coach football. And I know that's I'm pigeonholing it very much there. But you know, aside from understanding the positioning and the gameplay, you know, a centre forward could play in defence, whereas Whereas if you're really struggling, you can't put a shot putter in the 1500 meter run. Do you know what I mean? It doesn't work. They're different events, but different animals altogether.
Yeah.
And so for teachers, it's really difficult for them to actually coach track and field because it's so diverse. And when they qualify, they get like a day's coaching to give them the basics, and the basics were given to them like 30 years ago, and it's never really changed. And so I try to, everyone's sort of clambering over themselves to get the next Mo Farah, the next Jessica Ennis, and that's fine, go for it. Like, because when you get to that level, it's more management than actual coaching.
Yeah.
So I try and use my experience, bearing in mind I did a lot of things right, but I did a lot of things wrong. I try and use my experience to give kids and teachers a head start earlier on, so that they can benefit when they start to mature into better athletes. So they have better habits, so to speak. I remember hearing an interview years ago. It was Denzel Washington, actually, and he was going at the Oscars, and he was talking about the press, and he said, if you practice something enough, you'll become an expert at it. And that means if you practice the bad things enough or the good things enough. And a lot of people are actually practicing the wrong stuff. So a lot of my coaching is based around giving the right information earlier on in life, so the good habits become more readily available. So yeah, that's where I'm sort of involved in track and field. But my own fitness still takes is still massively important for me on a daily basis.
Right. Okay. So, because again, that's kind of an interesting sort of thing, and that's how fishing is, isn't it? You know, teaching kids the right way to start with, rather than getting bogged down in the complexity of rigs, and you know, it's kind of learn the basics. And I think something that a lot of the pro anglers I speak to all say the same thing. You know, that there's a lot of information out there, but it's not always the right information that you're watching. What got you sort of initially, I presume, as a youth, as a youngster, you fished, and did it progress from there? But how did that fit in when you was a pro athlete? Were you still sort of fishing then as well?
Yeah, I was. So I fished a long time before I put on a pair of football boots, or before I put on a pair of spikes. So I was messing about with my old man's like fishing tackle that he used to hide in the corner of the garage. Whilst I'd come back from school, we were still at work, and I used to get his like rods and umbrella out, and I was grounded a lot when I was a kid. I wasn't a bad kid. I was mischievous and misunderstood. They're two words that I think are very accurate to me. You know, I suppose nowadays I'd be like I ADHD or
you know on a spectrum somewhere.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, but we all know we all had the same shit. We just didn't label it as much.
Yeah, absolutely.
But so I always used to find an interest in being outside when I was grounded. And so I used to go and get his fishing umbrella and his rods and his reels out. And I had no clue what I was doing, but I'd sit in the garden and I'd sort of lock myself away. And I remember the first time I did it, and I heard the pitter-patter of the rain on top of the umbrella, and it just sort of transformed, it transcended me into like Narnia. It was a different world. You know, I had a right ump. I was grounded on this particular occasion. And it just, and the birds were sort of landing on the grass around me, and I just stayed ever so still, and I just thought to myself, that's great. And that Christmas, my old man gave me all his fishing gear, because he saw that I had a bit of an interest in it. Basically do you remember the Art of Fishing binders?
Yes, I do, yeah.
Well, my grandparents used to weekly buy me the Art of Fishing binders, and then you'd put your fish in there, you'd put your watercraft in there, you'd put your other bits and bobs in there. I remember what they all were, baits and all that stuff. Yeah. And I used to basically teach myself how to fish between that and watching John Wilson. But when he was like running down the river after Marseille, I couldn't really apply that down the local lake at Kingston, you know. And so I basically used to teach myself how to fish through those binders. And it just progressed, really. I remember up until the point of which I was probably 19, I fished all the time. My old mate Les used to take me to the Lobster Smack Freshwater Angling Club matches before I had my licence I think it was every couple of weeks. And my mum used to buy him a little packet of Golden Virginia as petrol money instead of petrol money, you know. And I used to sit there and get absolutely battered. The only match that I remember winning when I was a kid was the fur and feather over Lake Meadows, and I foul looked at an £11 carp up the arse. And And clearly it was match fishing, do you know what I mean? So it doesn't matter where you hook
Yeah.
them. But I've teased this thing in on my float rod, and I'm sitting there, it's like 1st of December or
Brilliant.
whatever, and I was freezing. I've teased this thing in, netted it, and I've gone to the guy next to me, I've gone, look, I found this carp, does it count? And he went, yes. I've bunged it in my keep net, weighed it in, and I've won this massive, great big turkey. But other than that, I never won anything. But I used to go on these matches because we used to do trips in little coaches and minibuses, right? But also, I used to love these matches because at weigh-in time, I used to go around and see all these guys catching big bags of bream, decent bags of chub, bags of tench, things that I aspired to catch, but I could never do it because I was reading about it, but never really in the right place to be able to apply it. And I'd sort of fish the first hour of the match, and then if I was in a bit of a shit peg or even a good peg and I hadn't caught anything, I'd sort of wind in, stick the hook in the ring, and I'd literally just go and sit behind whoever was catching and try and sort of mimic. Then I'd watch what they're doing, then come back and mimic it and not do it as well or anywhere near as good. But you just learn sort of by repetition, don't you?
Yeah, absolutely.
And so that progressed and all the way through to probably, I don't know, maybe like 16, 17. So we're talking like 8, 9 years old, right the way through to sort of 16, 17. And then I started getting interested in slightly bigger species. But I always try to catch the bigger specimens, like through my match style of fishing, you know, like feeder rods rather than 2 carp rods and stuff like that. And I remember I did go off the boil with the fishing a little bit, but that was because I was trying to become a professional athlete at the time. So I had 2 or 3 years where I didn't wet a line at all. And I remember just before I can't remember where it was. I think it might have been the 99 World Champs. And I'd picked up a bit of an injury and I was feeling a little bit of pressure and I had nothing to do other than rehab for like a few days. And it was approaching this major competition. And I remember my missus saying to me, she goes, I thought you love fishing. I said, I do. I really like fishing. I miss it. And she's like, take me fishing. And I took her out, and literally, this was like one morning. So I rang up my old mate Les and spoke to him for a while. And I said, where shall I go? And he said, go over Robbins. He said, buy yourself 3 pints of red maggots. He said, cup in half a pint of maggots, then go over the top of it with 3 dead maggots. And I was like, okay, fair enough. And I literally followed his advice and went over to Robbins, spent the half hour with my missus, afternoon with my missus. Bagged up, but it's pleasure sessions, so like they were everywhere. And that was it. That was the rebirth of my angling.
Oh wow!
I couldn't tell you exactly when that was, and that was the first time that I realised that I could put angling in amongst all of the track and field. And so pretty much every day off I had throughout my 10-year professional career, I was fishing in some way, shape or form, whether it be a bit of specie angling or a bit of match fishing or a bit of carp fishing. But the match fishing sort of took a bit of a back seat quite early on in that period because I remember fishing a match over Tyler's Common and it was a bit windy and we're talking like early 2000s, right? So fishing poles at 14 metres back then, they ain't like fishing poles at 14 metres nowadays, you know. They were heavy and they were like wet pieces of spaghetti. And I remember fishing at like 14 metres up to this island on my day off, and I didn't weigh in particularly. I caught a lot of small fish, but I didn't weigh in particularly well, and I worked really hard for it throughout that match. I woke up the next day for training, and I was sore, like holding that pole with a crosswind all day, and I thought, fuck this for a laugh, and so I went out and I bought myself a set of 3 carp rods.
Okay.
Because I thought I've got to do my fishing, but I can't be doing this match fishing on a day off because this day off has got to be a rest day. Do you know what I mean? And that's when the carp fishing sort of started to kick in. I had my first ever carp session. I mean, I'd done loads of carp fishing, but never sat behind 3 proper rods, like, you know. I went over to Crow's Heath and I did a session, and it was I completely fluked it because I caught a 40-pound catfish and the lake record common called the armadillo at like 28 pound or whatever it was back then.
Oh, wow.
And that was it. And that's when the carp fishing bug kicked in. I didn't even have a bed chair. I literally laid on my sleeping bag. You know, it was what proper, right, let's get the minimal amount of gear.
Wow. That's absolutely amazing. So that the athletics career, you say, was over like a 10-year period. I mean, that's when you were twice representing Great Britain at the Olympics. Yeah. I know was it gold in was it the Commonwealth?
Commonwealth Games. I go. Yeah, I don't know if I'm just looking around the office. I don't even know where that medal is.
It's probably inside your hoodie.
I'll tell you where it is. I know it's in a boot bag somewhere, but I don't know where
So,
it is. I've got very few things up. Like I've got loads of massive, great. This is my new passion: buying dirty, great, big, filthy lures like this. Look at that. But
oh
I've got
my word.
I've got a new cabin going in the garden, and my wife said I could have a feature wall, so I've gone and spent a ridiculous amount of money on like
Oh,
150
okay.
gram poppers.
Yeah, bloody hell. We'll come back to those then. But is it? I also read, and I'm guessing it's true, that once you had done with the athletics, you took up bobsleigh.
Yes and no. So I'd only just retired, and
Right.
I was actually laying on a physio bed getting. I had a dodgy hamstring, so I was actually laying on a physio bed getting my hamstring sorted. And I had a phone call from my agent at the time, and he said, "Look, he said BBC have been in touch, and they reckon you're perfect for this show." And I went, "Okay, go on, tell me a little bit more about it." And he said, "It's about bobsleigh." And I went, "Oh, okay." He said, "Look, they want to take 4 ex-professional athletes from different sports. So they had 2 from track and field. They had myself and they had Jason Gardner, the sprinter.
Oh,
They
okay.
had Dan Luger, the rugby player, and they had Craig McLean, the cyclist. And they want to put us in a bobsled, and they want to see if they can train professional athletes up to a standard where we could compete in the British Championships. Now, we only done it for 10 days. So from literally turning up at Bath University to do the very
Wow.
first day, the British Championships were 10 days later, right? And he said to me, he said, "Look," he said, "you're definitely going to crash." He said, "It's definitely going to hurt, but you're more than likely going to survive." And I went, "Fucking hell, sign me up." All right. And that was it.
Yeah, absolutely.
And we did. On the very first day, we went up to Bath University. That's where we all met. They showed us a couple of like crash dummy videos of people coming out the top of the track and landing, and unfortunately, some of them not making it. And then we sat down and watched Cool Runnings, which I'd watched 24 times before anyway, so we all knew how that worked out.
Yeah.
And then we flew out to Jazana the day after, which is where they done I'm going to say 2000. I can't remember which one it was, but then they done an Olympics there at Cesana in Italy, which is one
Right.
of the most technical tracks in the world. I think it's got 19 turns, and they proceeded to teach us how to push a bobsled off the top of the mountain, and in my case, steer, because it turns out I can drive. I'm quite good at driving stuff.
Right. Okay.
But it's not like a car. I'm used to driving a car on a track type of thing, right? But this, with a bobsled, you don't have a steering wheel. You have strings you have what you call runners. So you have strings with little loops in the end of them, and you don't steer around a corner. What you have to do is make tiny little incremental steers to try and counteract the centrifugal force. Essentially, when you go round a corner, you're stuck to the side of the track, and sometimes you're 10 foot above sort of where you would be standing because the
Wow.
centrifugal force. And bearing in mind, you've got 2 people in this bobsled, and the bobsled weighs 300 kilos. That's a hell of an amount of G-force to keep you stuck to the side of the
Yeah.
of the ice. But anyway, after 10 days, did we come 5th in the British Championships? We beat 2 of the potential teams that were on the
Wow.
developmental. They were on the developmental British team for Sochi, and yeah, they asked us if we'd actually be interested in like going and doing more training with the British team, on the pretense that if we progressed at that sort of rate, we'd make the Sochi Olympics. Both Jason Gardner was my brakeman, and I was the driver. Both Jason and I just retired. Jason had done a lot better than me financially out of track and field, but he fucking hated it. Like, I did crash. We crashed once. We crashed the day before the British champs at 78.5 mile an hour. It's all recorded. It's like, and I remember coming out of turn 15, and when you're in a bobsled, it's weird because there's no seats or anything. You sit on the chassis, and it's very bouncy, it's very rocky, it's very loud, but it's very hard. And the one time everything goes smooth and comfortable and quiet is when the runners are in the air. And clearly, when the runners are in the air, you're coming out the top of the track. So that's
Yeah.
bad. And we come out of 15. I remember coming out of 15. And I remember making a steer. It was really snowy that day. And they'd put all the curtains down, so you couldn't quite see the exit of the corner. Because obviously, when you're going into a corner in a car, you want to be looking well ahead of yourself. And the same with a bobsled. You want to be looking, as you're entering the corner, you want to look at the apex. And then once you approach the apex, you want to look right round the corner to see the exit. But they put the curtains down. I couldn't see the exit. So I just did a steer. I thought, fuck it. I know I'm going right, so I've got to do a steer. And what that did, it took me down too soon. And then as the corner ended, I was coming back up. So I came out the top of the track at 75 or 78.5 mile an hour. And I remember thinking, as I was in there, I was thinking, wow, that's quiet. And then thinking, that can't be good. And bless him, Jake. We went upside down, and this is the thing that people don't realise. Went upside down, and you're doing like nearly 80 mile an hour on your head with you got like cold burning ice underneath you, and you're literally on your shoulder and your crash helmet. And then you've got a 300 kilo bobsled on top of you, and you can't really kick out because the bobsled, as much as it's heavy and it does hurt when it's pounding you, it sort of keeps you protected as well, you know. So anyway, that's term 15. We've gone round 16, 17, 18, 19, and as you come out of 19, you're going uphill. And unfortunately, when we've gone uphill, they're supposed to, like when you're upside down, you've got the marshals jump in and they try and catch you. But they missed us. And so we've gone uphill and then we fucking come back down again and we're doing this upside down until we basically stop. I was fine. Like the side of my crash helmet was pretty flat and I had a bit of a burn on my shoulder. Jason was the same. Jason was like, he got out and his eyes were rolling a bit. And the coaches came running down to us and stuff and they went, right, sack it. That's it. That's the end of the training. We do the British Champs tomorrow. And I was like, no. I went, we cannot go into the British Championships with the very last run that we do on our heads. So I said to Jason, I said, we've got to go at the top of the mountain again, mate. We need one more run. We've got to go back into this. Like, you've got to get back on the horse. Because like with some of my track and field things, like you'd fall over in the hurdles, you get straight back on the horse. You snap a pole in the pole vault or you'd miss the bed in the pole vault, you fucking get straight back on the horse. Even if you just do one hurdle or just try and take off and do one bar or whatever, you know, you get back on the horse and you don't finish that session on a fail. And anyway, so we've all agreed and the coaches have turned around and said to us, look, okay, we're fine with you going again, but it's just a nice, slow, comfortable, easy run. I went, yeah, lovely, jubbly. And as we're going back up the mountain, I said to Jason, I was in his ear, I was going, Jason, I said, we've got to fucking push it, mate. I said, we really got to push it. We're competing tomorrow. We can't go easy. We know we've got easy. We don't know if we've got flat out. I said, and he said to me, he said, Dino, do you know what you've done wrong? And I went, yes. I had no fucking clue what I'd done wrong at the time. Absolutely none. All I know is whatever I did at turn 15, I wouldn't do again, right? So anyway, so I convinced him to push off the top of the mountain real hard. And bearing in mind, like I said, the bobsled's like 350 kilos and it rattles, it's loud. As we're pushing off the top of the mountain, I'm pushing off going, oh, like really giving it some, right? And through me shouting, through my crash helmet and through Jason's crash helmet, I can hear him screaming, like he's terrified. Anyway, we got down the bottom of the mountain, saved it. Like it wasn't particularly fast. I bounced off of a few walls and stuff, bit nervous, but we didn't crash. And we went to the British Champs the next day, and yeah, we like I said, I think we come. I can't remember what position we came, but we did really well. But from then, even though we decided not to pursue it, I actually got a Eurosport gig from the beginning of that year, that winter, all the way through to the Whistler Olympics. So I actually ended up commentating on Amy Williams winning her Olympic gold medal.
Oh, wow.
Because I'd done 10 days of bobsled, I instantly became an expert, clearly.
Fantastic.
But it was
what an absolute brilliant story.
Yeah, mega. But I'll tell you this, I always said afterwards, it was that, like, there's no car I've ever driven that feels as fast as an 80 mile an hour bobsleigh. You know, and I've been quite fortunate. I love me track days and stuff. You know, there's never, ever been a car that's seemed as fast as an 80 mile an hour bobsleigh. And I always promised my missus, I said, first thing I buy if I win the lottery is a 2-man bobsleigh. The second thing I buy is a brakeman. Because you've got to have someone that's brave enough to sit behind me.
Oh, my God, yeah. That's absolutely mad. But that, as you've just sort of said there about the crash and then getting back on the horse kind of thing, getting back in and doing it, that single-mindedness, does that kind of apply to your angling as well? Are you kind of, or is the angling just more of a fun thing, a hobby sort of thing now? I mean,
yeah.
If we just step back, I suppose you said about the commentating on the TV and stuff. Is that how did you get into doing that with the fishing on the TV? Because it was the big fish off, and there was, I think, is it Fishing All Stars? Did you do both of
Yeah,
those?
yeah.
Yeah.
Long before that, there was On Course. That was the very
Oh, of
first show that
course.
I
Yeah,
did.
yeah.
Yeah, do you know what? I wish I could do that now with what I've learned over the years, because I was very green when I done that. But I got to
Right.
fish when I fished with On Course. I got to fish with some of the very best anglers in the country: Pete Redding, Phil Smith, Steph Horak, Terry Hearn. Like to name but a few.
Wow.
And that was the thing that really solidified the fact that I wanted to travel the country and catch specimen fish of all species.
Hmm.
And I was really fortunate. Like, I caught my first double figure bream on that show. I caught my first double figure barbel on that show from the royalty at £12.12. Well, my very first double figure barbel was caught on TV with Ray Walton at the royalty. It was phenomenal.
Wow.
You know, it really was perfect. And I wish you could almost do that again. You know. So basically, the TV stuff came about when it came after 2004 Olympics. So I did the 2000 Olympics, come fourth. I won. Let's be clear though. I did win medals in all my world championships.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
I'm not a failure in everything, right? But I came fourth in both my Olympics. And after the 2004 Olympics, I can't remember who I was doing the interview with, but they were like. The questioning was based along the lines of boo-hoo, came fourth again, bit of a failure, and I was like, I should have come 10th on this one, so I done really well to come fourth.
Right. Yeah.
And my
Yeah.
training partner, because I had a few injuries that year, my training partner who'd whooped me in training with our 6-week lead up, he came fifth, which is, you know, if your best mate comes fifth and you come fourth, then it doesn't matter who comes first, second, or third, does it? Because we
No.
know
No.
what we
Exactly
talk about
that.
when we go down the pub. So I was like, basically, like I said, I was like, I come fourth, and I was really happy with that, because I didn't think I thought if I come somewhere in the top 8, I'd done really well. And bearing in mind, top 8 would be making the final in 100 meters. You know, so if you make the final in 100 meters, everyone talks about it. But if you come top 8 in the decathlon, because it's not one particular race, it doesn't really seem that big. But if you put it in that perspective, fourth is all right.
Yeah.
You know, it's definitely, like I
Yeah.
said, better than fifth. Anyway, so she said it was based along the lines of what you're going to do now. And I went, well, I'm off fishing for the week in France. I'd booked a spot with a bunch of strangers. I might have even been going to Fisherville, but literally with a complete bunch of strangers on a coach. And I said, I'm going carp fishing for a week. And anyway, so Discovery have picked that up. They've contacted my agent. My agent's contacted me and said, look, Discovery want to do, they've got a production team willing to put a show together. Would you be interested in filming it? And I'm like, so someone's going to pay me some money to go fishing? And they went, yeah. I went, fuck it, eh? So 2005 was really cool. I actually got injured in 2005, didn't end up competing. I ended up having 2 surgeries. But I got married in 2005, and I also filmed On Course in 2005. So I did, 2005, even though I look back at it on a professional basis with my athletics, was a bit of a shitter. Two really cool things happened. And based around the fact that On Course was actually quite a decent success, I had a few brands approach me, signed a few little contracts, and that's where the sort of like the sponsorship consultancy roles started. And then off the back of On Course, I was approached by, I can't remember how this went, but I was approached by Ali when he was working at Corda to pick up the reins of Gurus. Gurus run for 10 seasons, maybe, something like that. So 10 years.
Yeah.
It might have been 9 or 10 years. Off the back of Gurus and obviously Thinking Tackle, both on Sky. Then we got, there was always a market on mainstream TV for fishing. But people just don't want to watch 2 random blokes sitting in the bush with a rod in their hand waiting for a bite. That's boring. Boring as shit for most people. It's not for us, but it is for them. And and you couldn't really replicate the John Wilson days, because when John was doing it, everything was an adventure. The world wasn't as accessible with John. So when he went out Marcia fishing or Nile perch fishing, everyone was like perplexed by it. It was like, wow, that's amazing. But by the time that had been and gone, a lot of those species had either been eaten basically, and so it weren't even feasible to go out there and do it. But the world became a much smaller place with Tinternet and flights and all that stuff. So that sort of travel element wasn't there. So there was always a market for doing another fishing show. And fortunately / unfortunately at the time, a lot it was based around the fact that we had to get celebrities into fishing and create a bit of a competition. And in the end, the first series sort of divided people 50-50. There's no two ways about it. People loved it and got it right from the start, and other people slagged it off left, right and centre and said, there's nothing about fishing here. This is not what happens when we're on the bank. Of course it ain't. Because it's not just me and Ali going fishing. It's me and Ali going fishing with two celebs where we're trying to sort of pull a bit of a story together and we're competing. And so, yeah, we're a bit louder. Yeah, we're a bit more boisterous. But we're trying to get fishing in front of mainstream so that paved the way for Monster Carp. That paved the way for Fishing All-Stars. And actually... Okay. Yeah, and so Big Fish Off run for 5 seasons, I think. And after the first season... Like I said, it divided people. Second season was accepted a little bit more. Third season was accepted really well. And then fourth and fifth seasons, like when we announced it wasn't going to be doing a 7th season, I think a lot of people, even the haters from the first year, were a bit disappointed. And as much as it was a pain in the arse filming with Ali sometimes, because he's like a little Jack Russell, he never stops, never gives in. It's only when you look back you realise just how good you had it, because we had a really good thing there, and we could literally call each other 1 minute, and then we were cuddling, shaking hands, and we were like all good the next, and all the arguments on that show were genuine. We'd really get under each other's skins,
right.
But we'd still sit there facing each other like later on that night and just laugh about it, So we had I think we had a really good relationship, which showed but it was needle, When we had the needle, we had it bad. When he cast in my swim, I went to throw him in the lake.
I presume that was your competitiveness. I mean, being an individual athlete, the competitiveness must be really high. But that wasn't put on then for the show.
No, I really didn't care.
Right.
I genuinely, I've not. The one thing I'm not in my fishing is competitive, right? And don't get me wrong, I do a couple of little carp matches every year. One of them, I'm quite fortunate. I do the Dividing Lines carp match every year, which I'm fortunate to be Team South captain, and we've got some mega anglers on our team that probably deserve being captain much more than me. But I got asked, so I took it because I felt like it was a mega honour. And when I do that match, I'm pretty competitive because it's a match. But in general angling, I am not competitive with you or anyone else.
Oh, okay.
And I can take fishing, or I can't take it and leave it. That's a lie. But I'm not the person that would set a target of a target fish and never give up until I've got it. That's not me. And for that reason, I don't set targets. I've had very few target fish in my life that I've actually targeted. I have done, and I've been lucky enough to achieve said targets. But what I don't want is anything like that to get right under my skin. And I've had my competition days, and I know what competitive people are not necessarily really nice people. Being a competitive, selfish person isn't a trait that makes a really good brother, husband, son. My wife said to me a couple of months after I retired, which broke my heart actually, but bearing in mind she put up with this for 10, 11 years. A couple of years after I retired, she said, "You're a better husband now than you was when you was competing." And I was like, "No, that's harsh." But she understood it. She got it, and she never moaned. She's never moaned. But it was a discussion. She didn't just come out of it and just stab me in the back, But we was talking about something, and she said, "You're a better husband now. You don't have that streak." And so I'm very conscious not to have that streak in any of my life now. And so I'm really not that competitive. But when it comes to the Big Fish Off, all I wanted was my celebrities to have a fair crack of the whip. All I wanted was Team Dino to catch a few fish, so we just didn't sit there looking like plebs. And unfortunately, sometimes we did because we drew shit swims, and sometimes we drew great swims, and Ali would cast over. And that's where I was like, well, that's not on, because I wouldn't have done that. And so it wasn't competitive as in I need to win this. It was just competitive in the fact that I'm like, you, Jack. That's where it come from. So,
brilliant.
Yeah, and so that was really it. All I wanted was my team to catch a few fish, and at the end of it, love the experience.
So was that obviously being part of that sort of TV whole theme? Then is that where the brands came in? Were you getting more offers from brands? Because is it who you currently? Is it Korum and Avid?
Yeah, I
You,
do a little bit. Yeah, I do a little bit for Avid, do a little bit for Korum, do a little bit for Fox Rage. And clearly
of
it's
course,
more
okay.
YouTube. Yeah, clearly it's more YouTube based now. So where it's gone from TV with sort of Call the Guru to YouTube based, fishing is a much smaller part, or the fishing consultancy part of my income or life, I guess,
Yeah.
is a bit is much smaller. But fishing for me is still just as important and just as big. In fact, almost bigger. You know, I do a little bit more sort of on the tools
Okay.
grafty work now, and for that reason, I sort of enjoy my angling probably a little bit better. I've never been a full timer. I don't want to be a full timer. I couldn't think of anything worse than being on the bank Monday to Friday, because it would kill my excitement. It really would.
Right.
And I know what it's like when athletics was a hobby and then it became a career. And when it became a career, I never stopped loving it. But there's an element of pressure when it becomes a career that I don't want in my angling. You
Right.
know,
Okay.
I want to be able to, when I've had enough, I want to be able to come home. You know,
Yeah.
and when I want to stay a bit longer, I want to be able to want to stay a little bit longer. I don't want to have to do anything in my angling. You know, and so my contractual days with all three of those brands, every single year is small enough that when I get out with Korum, I'm excited about it. When I get out with Rage, I'm excited about it. When I get out with Avid, I'm excited about
Okay.
it. And so it leaves a little bit more time for my own adventures. Hence, you know, Future Ventura at 2 o'clock tomorrow morning.
Yeah.
Which
Absolutely.
none of them brands benefit from, but I'm just going to go and stand on some cliffs and chuck lures into the abyss and hope I can settle the score with that dirty great bluefish.
Yeah. So there's no pressure on you then to produce filming of your fishing and you know be all over social media promoting the brands and the products and stuff. Is that it's just something you do whilst you're using the gear kind of thing?
Yeah, it's well, I mean, yeah, I mean, I've got the same obligations as any consultant, you know.
Mm.
So if I say I'm signing with Avid, I use Avid gear, you know, and so we clearly
Yeah.
put a few posts up, and which I do, you know, we clearly put a
Yeah.
few posts up and this, that, and the other throughout the year, personally, as well as doing the filming and stuff like that. I've got nothing different than any other sort of normal run of the mill consultant, you know.
Right. Okay.
Other than I've got a little bit of a different history, I guess.
Mm. Yeah, I mean, I think I said at the start. I mean, you kind of you do have that true celebrity status. You know, you were a celebrity sportsman. I think. Did you win the inaugural Junior Sports Personality or Youth Sports Personality of the Year?
So I don't have my medals up, but I do have this because I, I've always said I don't want my medals hanging around because I won those medals. I've got those memories. But there's a
Hmm.
few things that I've won, like that behind there. That's Hall of Fame. So like I had nothing to do with that. Didn't have a clue. That's like to me
Okay.
being sort of honoured in the Hall of Fame is like
Wow.
quite a big deal for me. Like bearing in mind,
Yeah.
you know, I did better than some and not as good as others. The other
Hmm.
thing I've always had on show, because this was the bollocks, is this. Oh, she stuck it down so it didn't come off the shelf.
Ah. Oh wow.
And I have absolutely no issues showing that sucker off because yeah, that was the was it 99? Yeah, 99 best newcomer BBC Sports Personality.
And
So
yeah, I mean that's something that's a real, you know, got to take a pride of place, hasn't it? I mean
yeah, it does.
that's absolutely incredible.
I
So
remember.
yeah, as I say, um your sort of rise into the fishing world is completely different from everybody else's who
Yeah,
just, you know, started out in the fishing world kind of thing, whether that be in tackle shops or doing bait or whatever they were doing. Um, in terms of your own sort of personal. Do you have a preference of what you fish for, or are you just genuinely, if you're fishing for, a pike on a lure, it's just as exciting as if you got 3 carp rods out on a syndicate water looking for a 40-pound, 50-pound carp?
No, I mean, if I could fish for chub every day of the week, long trotting on a big river, standing there with a bait apron on and my waders, then I would do.
Really?
Because yeah, 100%, 100%
Wow.
running a float down for chub is the best way of fishing for me. But I purposely only do that at the right time of year when the conditions are good and the chub are in great nick. And chub have always been my favourite species, because when my dad in the 6 weeks holidays used to drop me off on the River Blackwater, me and my mate Darren Stacey, we used to run around like that. Was almost like he'd drop us off the A12, and this bit of Blackwater would almost horseshoe, So you could go from one, basically running around, but you couldn't really get lost. And we'd always be catching roach, gudgeon, the odd perch, and things like that. But then we'd see these what we thought were like monster chub, but they're probably only 2 or 3 pounds, start cruising past, and we'd just chase them down. We'd be throwing lumps of worm and luncheon meat and bread at them and stuff like that. And they were way too crafty, and we were way too blatant. And so a few years later, when my craft got a little bit better, and I learned how to actually, be a little bit more stealthy, a little bit crafty, and catch a few decent fish. I guess my love for chub comes from the fact that when I was a kid, I always aspired, because I could always catch. As much as I didn't catch carp all the time, when I went over to Danbury Lakes, I would fluke a carp almost every day I went over there. I'd have 100 goes, but I would fluke a carp. But when we went to the river, I'd have 100 goes with these chub, and I'd never catch them, And so I suppose my love from the chub comes from the fact that, I couldn't catch them when I was a kid, so that's where my obsession started. But also, after catching, and I don't mean this to sound very like blasé or big-headed, but after catching some significantly big fish of all species, nothing looks bigger than a big chub in my eyes. Right. A big chub looks bigger than a big perch, looks bigger than a 50-pound carp, looks bigger than, nothing looks bigger than a big chub. And I've been very, very fortunate to catch some huge chub. And there's nothing, there's just nothing that gathers. I've just been completely mind blown whenever I've caught a really big chub. So you expect a big carp to be big. Like when you go to the zoo, you expect an elephant to be big. Yeah. Right? So that's no surprise. But the first time you walk around the corner and you see a white rhino, you go, "Oh, bloody hell. That's a lump," And the first time you see a big chub, you think to yourself, "No, that should be a carp. No, that shouldn't be a chub."
Wow.
So but I will. My angling is very much, and this is going to sound very sort of cliche, but it's like a roller coaster. And I will literally do this all the way through the year, and I will follow the seasons, try to follow the seasons, try to follow the weather conditions, and try to put myself on a species, on a venue that suits that particular time. I foul more often than not, the same as everybody else, but I don't just sit on my syndicate like 24/7 looking for that one big one, because that would bore me.
Right. Okay. That's quite an interesting. I suppose because of the multi-species fishing that you do, there's always something else to move on to, isn't there? I read that there was a book you'd wrote. Maybe I've got that bit wrong then. But,
yeah, no, I've been asked. I did. Do you know what? I did think about it. I did think about it, but the truth be told is I enjoy my fishing a lot more than writing or talking about my fishing. I get asked to do a lot of fishing talks, and I'm like, for every one of me, for every time I turn down a fishing talk, there's someone queuing up behind that's prepared to do it, that would do just as good a job, and that's probably caught similar size fish in a similar manner.
Right.
Whereas when I do my track and field talks, obviously, there's not a lot of people that have done that. So when I stand up there, I feel like I'm actually contributing and telling a story that a lot of people either aspire to or probably never will achieve. Whereas when I think about doing a fishing book or a fishing talk, I think there's 1,000 people that could do the same thing. It's not. It's not new. It's not different. So no, I think I contributed to a few. I've done a few. I've done chapters in a few, but I've contributed to a couple of the Bible societies. Contributed to obviously like some of the stuff that we did with the Big Fish Off. But let's be honest, Gary Newman wrote the vast majority of that anyway. Just put my name at the bottom of it. But the stuff that I generally write in papers, magazines, or make papers and magazines, but all of the angle, I do all of that myself, obviously, just with spell check.
Yeah, as I say, I googled it and it did definitely come. But as you say, it could be. You should have just took the credit for it and said, "Yeah, got another one in the pipeline."
Was it a bestseller? Because I want my dividends. I want my royalties.
Yeah, I'll go back and check. And one of the other things as well, which I guess sets you aside from the rest of the professional angling fraternity, you're in the Guinness Book of World Records for, is it team burpees?
Yeah, all them years of track and field, and I'm a world record holder in chest to floor burpees. But so what happened was, through COVID, there was a lot of people going, 22 push-ups for 22 days. And I was like, come on, if you're going to do a challenge, let's do more than 22 push-ups in a day. So I started doing some proper challenges, right? And so I did push-up challenges and various bits and bobs. And because of that, I got contacted by a guy called Carl Orm. And we did a little interview just like this. And there was a lot of online stuff going around where everyone was locked down. Yeah. And after that, he does an awful lot of stuff for charity. And I'm patron for a charity just around the corner called the Indy Rose Trust. And they do gift boxes for kids with brain tumours that have had some bad news, or really bad news. Yeah. And anyway, he said, should we do something for charity? And I'm like, yeah, let's do it. And so he said, look, I'll leave it up to you to decide. And I'd already had this thing every Christmas that I did what I call death by 400 metre burpees. So basically me and a few pals, and it is a few because not many are man enough, but we used to do a 400 metre race of burpees. And there are rules out so you don't cheat and all that stuff. And it's hell on earth because it hurts at 50, as bad at 50 as it does at 350. So it's not even like you can get the first bit of the race out of the way and over and done with. You are 50 metres in and you are max pain for the next 15 minutes. Anyway, long short of it, I said to him, let's do the death by 400 metres burpees. But then I'm thinking it's max 20 minutes. So that's not going to raise an awful lot of money. So now I was like, let's do a mile. And then I'm thinking, well, that's max with fatigue 2 hours. So that's not going to do a lot of money. So then we decided that we'll try and do chest to floor burpees 24 hours because we Googled it and actually the world record seemed doable. And so we started getting a team together to do this. And then one of the team, my mate Perry, he actually came across about 3 weeks into the preparation. He said, do you know there's a 12-hour? And we were like, yeah, let's definitely do the 12-hour because we were training up to like 3-4 hours. And knowing full well that we had another 20 hours to go after that was mind-numbing. So when we found out there was a 12-hour chest to floor burpee record, we was like, yeah, let's go for that. It was it was higher pace, clearly, but it was half the time. So, yeah, a few years ago, it's a team of 6. And you sort of go in turns, so you do it the way we did a minute on, 5 minutes off, which sounds all right, but it's the 5 minutes off where you start to stiffen up and start getting real sore. And then you do that for 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 10 hours, and you're still nowhere near there. I think we broke the world record by 1,700 odd. Wow. We broke it with like an hour and a half to go, something like that. But yeah, so I've always wanted to be a world record holder. I thought it would be something to do with track and field, and it turns out it's absolutely not. I'm part of a Guinness World Record that for chest to floor burpees, and it's a long way down for me to get my chest to the floor. Let me tell you.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, that was one of the other things because are you a big caster? Can you chuck a lead? I mean, you're a tall guy. You're obviously you're 6'5", is it something like that? Yeah, does that are you a big caster? Is that because it doesn't? I don't know. It doesn't always work that way, does it?
No, technique and timing is probably better than having. Well, no, I mean you still have to have a little bit of fast twitch fibers to be able to like jam that hand into your chest. Like, you know, if you're a really slow, laborious person, regardless of what your timing is, regardless of what lead, tapered leaders, and what rod you're on, you're probably never going to cast as well as someone that's got the same timing, same technique, but just physically have more fast twitch fibers. So yeah, I mean, I can chuck a lead. I've as far as I need to. And I've been to Zhaki and fished and spawned at 150 yards all week, you know, no drama. It does become, when you do it more often, it becomes much easier. But I will say this, I mean, I used to, I don't do it now, but I used to take people out and do little tuitions and stuff, you know, days with Dino and all that. And the one thing that I found that separates, like, I don't like saying people like me, but like, you know, decent anglers from people that go out once every 2 or 3 weeks is the technical side of things, being able to cast accurately, hit a clip, lay a rig in first or second time on demand, as opposed to, you know, missing a clip, fuzzing one out over here and like all of this, that, the other. And so before I'm going to go and do something that is not out of my comfort zone, but something that I haven't done for a long time, I will take a rod and a lead over to a field, and rather than just chucking it into the abyss, I'll take a bucket over there and I'll put it at 100 yards, then I'll move it to 120, then I'll move it to 140, then I'll move it to 160 or wherever I need to go. And I will practice long distance casting, but not, like I said, not into the abyss, but actually in a clip, hitting a clip 6 foot above the water, letting the line stretch actually sort of do its thing, and then laying it onto the ground, you know. So I will actually go and just, like, I suppose that's my track and field or my sport background. I always say to people, don't do all your ups when you're there fishing, because you're screwing your swim up. Get it wrong on the field. Get it, you know. I go over the sea. You know, if there's a load of footballers over the pitch, then I'll just go and stand on the sea and just clip it up and just like wrap it up, clip it up to 100 yards. You know, 25 wraps, hit the clip, lay it in. You know, and just get used to it. But most of my angling isn't long distance casting. You know, and I think most people could get away as long as you can hit a clip properly and spawn accurately at 25 wraps. You're fishing 90% of venues really well. There is the odd occasion when just, you know, casting singles or baiting at long range is a necessity because that's where they are. And when like I said, when I've come across that, I've made sure that I've done some practice so that when I get onto the lake, when I'm in that swim, I hit the ground running. But so the answer to that is, yeah, I can punch a lead, I can chuck a spawn, but there's nothing beats getting them in the edge, though, is there? But sometimes the edge is a long way away.
Yeah, exactly. It's just something. I mean, a lot of the guys I know that are the big casters. One of the guys from Nash's stuff and a Romanian guy that I know. I mean, they're just big guys, you know, physically big as well. But like you say, technique is a massive thing, isn't it? So what in terms of like the brands that you're with, do you get any? Are you involved in like any of the product development on the consultancy side of things, or is it just more testing than design?
Can be. So the product development side of things takes a little bit of time. Time is one thing that I don't have the luxury of as much these days. So when I signed, I said to them, look, if you want to run any ideas past me, that's fine. And if I've got any ideas that just pop out of my head, you know, I have a light bulb moment, great. But I'm probably not going to be the guy that's sitting there tinkering with things after I've come back from work when the missus has got EastEnders on, you know, like. So there is an element, certainly with like sort of the brands at Rather Outdoors that I work with, the Rage, the Korum, and the Avid, it's very much the guys that are in the thick of it do the vast majority of the actual product development and testing, and then I get to, or I say I, not just I, we as the consultants get to test it and sort of tweak it if need be before it hits the shelves.
In terms of what you do with Korum and Avid. Um, has that opened up any sort of special places for you to go and fish? Has it given you access to, or just your status in the angling industry? Has that given you access to, waters that your average angler's not going to get on?
No, no.
No.
I still pay for my own syndicates. I still pay for, well, I say that when I'm doing filming and stuff like that on day tickets, obviously my
Yeah.
expenses are paid for. So Korum and Avid, they'll pick up the tab there. But no, no special treatment. I just do my own fishing. I think a lot of people are surprised when they see me on their venues. They expect like secret hush hush, secret squirrel sort of venues, but it's not like that. I just go fishing. The reason I don't get collared a lot is because I try to stay away from the crowds.
Yeah.
But other than that, it's it's no different. No secret baits, no secret rigs, same gear as everyone can buy off of the shelves. It's just, I just do YouTube videos for them.
Yeah. So yeah, I think again, I think there is a big misconception because it's almost seen as like you're in a privileged position. But I think all the anglers that I've spoken to that are full time, get paid for actually fishing rather than work for tackle companies as well. All say the same thing. I mean, one of the other comments is about bait, because they get bait for free. Everybody just said, well, that's why they catch more fish, but it's not the case. You're with mainline, is that correct? You use mainline?
Yeah, I've been with mainline 15 odd years now.
Oh wow, okay.
Yeah, I mean, you just you just have to stick with what you're confident with, aren't you?
Yeah.
And to be fair, I've got a couple of bags of the ready-made sat in the fridge, the freezer that's not on anymore. I've got a couple of bags of ready-mades and a load of pellet in the garage, and again, nothing special. Like just try and be a little bit more. Try and be a little bit more. I don't know, precise. I'd probably do, like most people at a higher level, take less casts, have better line lay, take a little bit more time, a little bit more finesse. And over the course of a year, I think that adds up to that big one, or that adds up to a number of more captures. But I've sat next to people that I thought, he don't really know what he's doing, and had my arse handed to me. Well, we've all made great swims look like shitters, and we've all made shitters look like great swims at times, haven't we? Yeah. I come home regularly, and the missus like, catch. I'm like, no, fluffed it, absolutely fluffed it. Especially when I'm mullet fishing. Oh my god, the smallest of bad decisions turns the whole day into an absolute nightmare. And then other days you come home and it's a red letter day.
So, what's in terms of your bait then? What's your go-to for carp? What's your what would you normally use?
Well, if we're talking boilie, then it's 50-50 ISO fish and cell. I think they eat it. That's it. I think they eat it. I put a little bit of smart liquid on it a day or two before, just to give it a little bit more sort of Shazam or whatever, and a little bit more sort of attraction. Mix it with a bit of pellet, bit of them, because I'm an all-rounder, so I don't mind catching tension break. So I probably use a lot more pellet than most, and I think the one thing that carp might not eat an ISO fish. They might not eat a cell. They might not eat your chosen boilie. They will eat a pellet. They were weird on it. They will eat a pellet. There's no bit like if I had to fish with one bait for the rest of my life, I would be fishing pellet.
Right, because I mean that's from my perspective, depending on venues, but pellet just can cause what I would class as nuisance fish. Whereas I suppose you're not that first, like you say. If you catch a tench, if you catch something different, it's a fish. But if you're fishing for carp, so here's the big question: if you're fishing for carp and you catch a tench, is that still a blank if you don't have a carp?
Oh well, you're sort of you're leading the witness, Your Honour. If I was targeting carp and I didn't catch carp, then it's a blank, isn't it? And if I caught a double figure, I've never caught a double figure tench whilst carp fishing. All my double figure tench have been caught by design. I have caught 40-pound carp whilst tench fishing, and am I going to slip them back and think it's like a cool? Not. I'm holding that up for a photograph. That's a 40-pound carp.
Yeah, absolutely.
Fishing is hard enough at times when you have to take the luck when you get it. Right now, I wouldn't photograph if I was zig fishing. I hooked something in the dorsal fin. I wouldn't photograph that. But if I catch a 40-pound carp with my 2-pound test curve rods and I'm fishing worm feeders for tench, I'm holding that sucker up for a picture and I'm making sure everyone knows about it.
Yeah, absolutely.
But that's the good thing about fishing, right? Whatever, if that doesn't float your boat, if you think that's wrong, great. You go and do your thing. I'll go and do my thing. Yeah, I ain't going to force it on you. You don't force your stuff on me.
No, exactly that. But I'm glad we're on the same page about blank savers. I can't be doing with bream as a blank saver, or even a good tench.
If it's £15, then I'm having that as well. Again, no, I've not caught many massive bream when I've been carp fishing. I've caught most of my bream when I've been bream fishing. Yeah, I've caught a load of big carp when I've been bream fishing too. I'm a much better carp angler when I'm tench and bream fishing than when I'm carp fishing.
Yeah, when you're fishing for something else. Yeah,
mad, isn't it?
We've all been there. Dean, listen, it's been absolutely brilliant talking to you. I've got loads of other bits that I'd like to sort of talk about. We haven't even sort of talked about your fishing, the way you fish and the tactics and everything else. But I think we'll save that for another time. I'm guessing I've eaten into your day now, and you're, as I say, you're off on your fishing holidays tomorrow. So.
I am off on fishing holiday.
Yeah, absolutely. So listen, thanks for your time. It's been brilliant, and it was nice to talk about. I mean, I first saw you on the TV as an athlete, so it's a proper celebrity. It's been brilliant.
I don't wear the lycra's in the cupboard, but it don't go on much anymore.
Yeah, perhaps not when you're doing the north-south fishing competition either.
Definitely not with them northerners.
That's brilliant. Thanks, Dean. Catch up soon.
Top man. Cheers, buddy.